What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we've been talking recently about Microsoft buying different studios and creating new partnerships, but yesterday it was Sony stealing headlines with a surprising partnership that they announced, and we'll be talking about that one here today. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about that Apple and Epic Games court case that's currently going on, as several documents are getting out there, and one of which actually points to what could be a massive crossover for the Metroid franchise. Oh, and we had talked previously about Konami heading to E3, but it turns out they have other plans. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with new games heading to Game Pass for the month of May. We'll head over to Microsoft's website here, and you can see a nice little graphic they put out that shows all the different games. And we'll go over the dates here, starting with Dragon Quest Builders 2, that is out today, May 4th. Moving up to May 6th, there is FIFA 21, Outlast 2, Steep. Moving to May 13th, we have Final Fantasy X 10-2 HD Remaster, Just Cause 4, Psychonauts, Red Dead Online, and Remnant from the Ashes. Now, several games will be leaving on May 15th. That includes Alan Wake, Battlefleet Gothic, Dungeon of the Endless, Final Fantasy IX. Kind of a shame to see Final Fantasy IX get bumped out as another one's coming in, but maybe there's a deal set up or something between Square and Microsoft for just how many Final Fantasies can be on the service. Who knows? Hotline Miami, and then Plebby Quest. Overall, a pretty good set of games heading to Game Pass. The big one here that I would look into is Psychonauts. It came out a while ago during like the original Xbox PS2 generation, so I'm sure there's a lot of people who are not familiar with the game and haven't had a chance to check it out. But remember, it's about to become a series, as Psychonauts 2, according to Double Fine, is going to be releasing this year at long last, and it'll head right into Game Pass. So out of these, that's definitely the one I would check out in anticipation for its sequel. Also, while we're on the topic of subscription services, let's take a look at what Sony is adding to PlayStation Now, as they made an announcement through their PlayStation blog, and we can see that here, saying with PlayStation Now's May lineup, you can try to survive unrelenting yokai in feudal Japan, rub shoulders with manga icons, and battle your way across an entire city. Starting tomorrow, May 4th, Neo, Jump Force, and Streets of Rage 4 will be available to play on your PS5 or PS4 console. And obviously that's not as many games as we just talked about with Game Pass. I think Sony is still trying to figure out what they're going to do with PlayStation Now heading through this PS5 generation. We'll see what they come up with there with their counterpunch to Game Pass. But looking at what they have here, I mean, it's always a win when the Fighting Game of the Year nominee Jump Force gets added in. But outside of that, Neo's good. And then obviously Streets of Rage 4 is certainly worth a download if you already have the service. Oh, and here's an interesting bit of news. We already know that Nintendo is doing the Super Mario movie, which we'll see how that turns out. It should be interesting. But it also looks like they're going to be looking into other IPs and franchises to bring to the big screen, or maybe even to something like Netflix. We can head over here. This with VGC covering Fast Company, who had a feature with Nintendo's president Shintaro Furukawa, where he says animation in general is something that we are looking into, and not just this franchise. That talking about the Super Mario movie. And obviously there's a wealth of IPs that they could choose to then take and adapt to something like a TV series on Netflix, or maybe they want to do a whole movie around The Legend of Zelda. I would like to see them look towards some of their franchises that maybe could use a bit of a jump start, like, sure, F-Zero, but we did have at least an anime of F-Zero back in 2003, I believe, so it wouldn't be like a first time for F-Zero or anything, but it would be cool to see that happen, maybe to get people a bit more interested, or maybe even just overall awareness of the franchise existing to the general public. But most likely Nintendo would use that maybe in accordance with a big game release coming up. And to be honest, it's easier to bet on a bigger franchise they've already built up for something like this. So most likely Legend of Zelda, yeah, that would probably make sense. Or maybe even like a Splatoon TV series. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Sony and their new partnership with Discord. This was mostly surprising because we had talked before about Microsoft actually looking into buying Discord for what was allegedly about $12 billion or so. Yeah, quite a bit of money there for Microsoft to look into that, but obviously Discord extremely popular, especially among gamers, but even most recently in this last year where Zoom was all the talk, people were using Discord just to do regular business meetings or meet up in the morning for kind of going over the agenda for the day for different businesses, and it's certainly used a lot. So it makes sense for Sony to look at that and say, well, they already built out everything we would need to have PlayStation be more cross-platform. Let's integrate with Discord. We can actually see this here. This was a post written up by Jim Ryan talking about this new partnership where they say, together our teams are already hard at work connecting Discord with your social and gaming experience on PlayStation Network. Our goal is to bring the Discord and PlayStation experiences closer together on console and mobile starting early next year, allowing friends, groups, and communities to hang out, have fun, and communicate more easily while playing games together. To bring these experiences to life for our players, Sony Interactive Entertainment has made a minority investment as part of Discord's Series H round. That's right, you read that correctly. Sony has actually made an investment into Discord. And now you kind of look at that and they say mobile devices. We hear about, obviously, them being more interested in mobile game development with some of their key franchises with that job listing. Makes you wonder if maybe they're looking into the mobile sector a bit more, but also they've shown heavy interest in PC. Discord would work to bridge the gap between PlayStation, PC, and mobile if Sony really is looking to make a big push into those other two platforms. So yeah, sure, have Discord across those platforms, bring everyone together in this community aspect where you can talk easily. Seems like it makes a ton of sense for Sony with that partnership. And a lot of people are already familiar with Discord, so we'll see how they integrate it into PlayStation as they are talking about an early 2022 release for this. And I'm wondering if that means we'll press the PlayStation button on our PS5, for example, and there'll be a little Discord icon at the bottom. You click it, and then all of a sudden you can invite people from other PlayStations or on PC or maybe even their mobile devices to video chat or just type and talk about different things going on in games while you're playing the new God of War. And really looking at this, Nintendo should have been the one to do this partnership as well, and we've seen Discord be pretty open to having partnerships with these different platform manufacturers, as they did have a partnership with Microsoft. It doesn't seem to be as serious as what we have here with Sony, but still, like, Nintendo seems like this would fit perfectly to get their issues around voice chat and just overall communication. Hey, if Discord gets on there, you'd be able to send your friends a message on your friends list. But for now, it looks like Sony is going to have a pretty serious partnership here going forward to start this generation with Discord. So interesting stuff, and we'll see what comes from it. Next up, let's talk about that court case between Apple and Epic Games and how we now know there were several characters that it looks like Epic was pursuing or may still be looking into for kind of their crossovers where they bring in the different guest characters. Think of like Master Chief or Kratos, for example. Well, it looks like they had a list of other characters. We can see that here from IGN, starting with, yeah, that's right, you see at the top, Samus Aran, Naruto, Katniss, the Bride, that's from Kill Bill, Snake Plissken, which is interesting, John McClane, but obviously the big one is Samus Aran. If you go to page 35 of I think it's like a 94-page presentation from Epic Games on 2021 plans, you can see Samus Aran next to Master Chief and then Kratos. Now, I want to point out that appears to be fan art of Samus, and most likely an intern went through and said, okay, I need a gritty looking picture of Samus from the Metroid series, and they went to Google Images, found that one, and just kind of put it next to Master Chief and Kratos there, so it lines up kind of with the overall aesthetic. But Samus going to Fortnite as a character that will be playable, a skin, would be massive for the Metroid franchise. I put it up on Twitter. I said, hey, look, that'd be one of the biggest things that could happen for Metroid. People didn't seem to really agree with that necessarily. And it's weird because if you zoom out on the Metroid franchise, it needs all the exposure it can get because it's not a massive selling IP for Nintendo. At least it hasn't been in the past. And just getting more eyeballs on the Metroid franchise by having Samus Aran go to Fortnite would be huge. Like, that would be massive for this overall video game IP, and it would work really well, I think, to help make Metroid Prime 4 that much more successful, which, by the way, is a game that I think could use that because they had to restart development. It's not cheap to restart development, especially after they were a couple years in, and who knows how much of what they created could even be reused by Retro Studios. So Metroid Prime 4 most likely needs to be pretty successful overall in terms of units sold and just bringing more awareness to it from a massive audience with Fortnite would just be that much better for it. But I want to point something out here, and I think this is probably something that is not going to happen. And unfortunately, it's mostly because Nintendo and how they see their IPs and where they go. While I think it is a good idea and the pros outweigh the cons, Nintendo's probably looking at this and saying, we can't have Samus on other systems. And the way it works with Fortnite, with Kratos and Master Chief, for example, they have to be on all the platforms. You can't just pick and choose. We can't just have Samus on the Switch. They're serious about cross-platform play, cross-progression. So Samus would show up on an Xbox, Samus would show up on a PlayStation, on PC, and I kind of think Nintendo is against that to the point where they would rather not do it at all. And like I said, that sounds weird because it would bring massive exposure to a franchise that could really use it, but that's just kind of how Nintendo is. I mean, remember with Rocket League, they had the Samus car and they had the Mario car, and I think those were only on the Switch, most likely because Nintendo being Nintendo. But I guess you never know. I don't want to write it off completely because I do hope that it happens, especially because it's a franchise that could just use any exposure it can get. So I guess we'll see if it's still in the plans for 2021 with Fortnite and Metroid maybe crossing over. Next up, let's talk about a really cool feature that continues to have more and more games use it on the Xbox Series systems, and that's FPS Boost, where Microsoft has worked out a way to take games that were originally locked at like 30 hertz or 30 FPS, for example, and boost it to 60 or even 120 hertz. And it looks like a ton of games have been added in all at once starting yesterday. And we can see this tweet here. This is from Larry Herb or Major Nelson saying, today we're releasing our largest drop of games featuring FPS Boost to date, bringing the total titles boosted to 97. I think they added like 74 or something, many of which are included in Xbox Game Pass and EA Play. And we can kind of go over here to the large list that they now have up on their website. And I'll link it down below as well. But like Alien Isolation is 60 hertz, which is really cool to see that. A bunch of Assassin's Creed games, including Assassin's Creed Unity. Remember when that thing released on like the Xbox One and the PS4 and ran terribly? Now it's 60 hertz on both the Series X and the Series S, so that would be kind of interesting to go back and take a look at there. I also noticed a bunch of Far Cry games all being added in. They also have Halo Spartan Assault and Hollow Knight at 120 hertz. Wow, Hollow Knight probably feels pretty good at that higher frame rate there. And I also noticed Mad Max at 120 hertz, both of the Metro games, that being Metro 2033 and Metro Last Light Redux, are at 120 hertz, and they even went back and grabbed Yakuza 6, The Song of Life, and moved that up to 60 hertz. And I know I've said this before, but I really do like the focus right now on frame rate over just straight resolution. I mean, yeah, sure, resolution's easier to market, 4K, 8K, yeah, it looks great. But the idea of having a very smooth experience, even up to 120 frames per second on these consoles, is really, really cool, especially with older games that you would then go back to and look at completely differently, really, especially games that you remember running terribly, now moved up to 60 or even 120 frames per second is really cool. I'd like to see Microsoft continue to add to this, and whenever they do finally start to get some of their big first-party games out there, I mean, the fact that they have the backwards compatibility stuff all figured out, and then they start getting new titles, it seemed like Microsoft be hitting on all cylinders. So here's hoping that sooner rather than later. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Konami at E3, or how Konami was supposed to be going to E3. It appears that plans have changed, as they tweeted this out, saying, due to timing, we will not be ready to present at E3 this year. We want to reassure our fans that we are in deep development on a number of key projects, so please stay tuned for some updates in the coming months. While we are not participating this year, we have great respect for the ESA and know that 2021 will be a great success. We will continue to support the ESA and wish the best to all participants at this year's show. So there's a few ways to look at this. One, Konami just didn't really have a lot to show outside of some of those rumored games, because if you remember, the rumors around like Silent Hill and Metal Gear Solid being remade all tied back to Sony. Sony's not going to E3, so if those games were going to be shown, they would probably be shown in a state of play that will be very strategically placed around E3. Sony could just show up the week before E3 and boom, their state of play. They could even wait till the end of June, drop it then, maybe even July. But if Konami was going to be showing either of those games seemingly more Silent Hill, I would say, because Metal Gear Solid, as the rumors seem to say, is like way off still in the distance for it to release like years from now. But Metal Gear or Silent Hill over Metal Gear is probably what would be shown there. So that would be something that I guess Sony would handle. Otherwise, I'm sure they could have shown up to E3 with like Pro Evolution Soccer and maybe a Castlevania slot machine for good measure. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, will Nintendo improve voice chat options on the Switch this generation? 84% of you said no, the phone app is what we get this gen. And then 16% of you said yes, they will continue to evolve the online features. At this point, I say just partner with Discord, because even if Nintendo decided, okay, we're gonna build out this whole thing, we're gonna have like a community section, we're gonna have voice chat, messages, we all know they're going to Nintendo it up in some way, right? Like, we remember when they first talked about voice chat and they showed off the, like, this spider web of cables to make this work, and everyone was like, why don't you just plug it into the Switch with a microphone and then do that? But like, no, there's like a cable coming off of here to go to your phone as well, and that's my thing with that. We know Discord, partner with Discord, call it a day, make it work on the Switch. I still think that's the best route at this point, because to be honest, I don't know if I really trust Nintendo to even build something like that out on their own system right now. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Grail saying, Switch is popular because you can play games on the go. 2020, everyone has to stay at home. Best year the console had. Well, a lot of that was just, like I said, numbers for this past year were inflated because people were at home looking for things to do. And hey, there's a Switch with Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing is basically a life simulator that had a ton of people buying it up, ton of word of mouth. Yeah, I mean, it all kind of works out that way for Animal Crossing. But really looking at the Switch, there's this thought that you get the Switch because you want to take it outside the home. I think just the idea of it being a hybrid system and having that extra layer of convenience so that you don't need a TV to play it is fine too. Like, it can be a portable system around the home and the concept still works. And I think for a lot of people, that's how they view it, because the Switch is still an investment. Taking it outside the home on the go, it could get roughed up. I think people are just happy knowing, oh, if someone's using the TV, I can take it out of the dock and just play it on the couch if I want. Really, I think that on its own, that concept just there sells it. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Where's the Sony Discord partnership? What do you think they're gonna do with that partnership, and how deep do you think it'll run for the PlayStation brand across the PC and maybe even mobile devices? Also, what about Samus Aran in Fortnite with some sort of crossover, most likely a skin where you'd be able to play as Samus in Fortnite? Do you think it's a good idea overall, and do you think it could help the Metroid franchise go to the next level? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.